Khufu or Cheops was an ancient Egyptian monarch who was the second pharaoh of the 4th dynasty. In the first half of the Old Kingdom period, 26th century BC, Khufu succeeded his father Sneferu as king. He is generally accepted as having commissioned the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, but many other aspects of his reign are poorly documented. Pharaoh Orion, 2589 to 566 BC 3 for 63 years, according to Manetho, 26 or 46 years. According to modern historians, 5 predecessors Pharaoh's titulary consort. Meretite Henetson, 3 children Kawab, Jedifer, Hetepheres 2, Meretites 2, Meresink 2, Balfer, Jedfer, Minka Phi, Kafir, Khufu Phi, Babaf, Horbeef, Nefertiti, Kamerneti I9, Father Pharaoh, Nefertiti, Hetepheres, deep to 566 burial great. Pyramid of Giza monuments, Great Pyramid of Giza, Khufu Ship Dynasty, 4th Dynasty. The only completely preserved portrait of the king is a 3-inch ivory figurine found in a temple ruin of a later period at Abydos in 1903. All other reliefs and statues were found in fragments, and many buildings of Khufu are lost. Everything known about Khufu comes from inscriptions in his necropolis at Giza and later documents. For example, Khufu is the main character noted in the Westcar papyrus from the 13th dynasty. Most documents that mention King Khufu were written by ancient Egyptian and Greek historians around 300 BC. Khufu's obituary is presented there in a conflicting way. While the king enjoyed a long-lasting cultural heritage preservation during the period of the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom, the ancient historians Manetho, Diodorus, and Herodotus hand down a very negative depiction of Khufu's character. Thanks to these documents, an obscure and critical picture of Khufu's personality persists. Khufu's name was dedicated to the god Khnum, which might point to an increase of Khnum's popularity and religious importance. In fact, several royal and religious titles introduced at this time may point out that Egyptian pharaohs sought to accentuate their divine origin and status by dedicating their official cartouche names to certain deities. Khufu may have viewed himself as a divine creator, a role that was already given to Khnum, the god of creation and growth. As a consequence, the king connected his name with his own. Khufu's full name, Khufu, means Khnum protect me, 1112, while modern Egyptological pronunciation renders his name as Khufu. At the time of his reign, his name was probably pronounced as Kw Yafwy, and during the Hellenized era, Kuafw 13. The pharaoh officially used two versions of his birth name, Khnumkaf and Khufu. The first complete version clearly exhibits Khufu's religious loyalty to Khnum. The second shorter version does not. It is unknown as to why the king would use a shortened name version, since it hides the name of Khnum and the king's name connection to this god. It might be possible, though, that the short name was not meant to be connected to any god at all. The royal family of Khufu was quite large. It is uncertain if Khufu was actually the biological son of Sneferu. Egyptologists believe Sneferu was Khufu's father, but only because it was handed down by later historians that the eldest son or a selected descendant would inherit the throne. 9 In 1925, the tomb of Queen was found east of Khufu's pyramid. It contained many precious grave goods, and several inscriptions give her the title of Nefer, meaning mother of the king, together with the name of King Snefer. Therefore, it seemed clear at first that Hedefirs was the wife of Snefer, and that they were Khufu's parents. More recently, however, some have doubted this theory, because Hedefirs is not known to have borne the title Nefertiti, meaning king's wife, a title indispensable to confirm a queen's royal status instead of the spouse's title. Hedefirs bore only the title Nefertiti verbatim, daughter of his divine body, symbolically king's bodily daughter, a title mentioned for the first time. 15 As a result, researchers now think Khufu may not have been Sneferu's biological son, but that Snefer legitimized Khufu's rank and familial position by marriage, by apotheosizing his mother as the daughter of a living god. Khufu's new rank was secured. This theory may be supported by the circumstance that Khufu's mother was buried close to her son and not in the necropolis of her husband, as it was to be expected. Family tree. The following list presents family members which can be assigned to Khufu with certainty. Parents. Sneferu, most possibly his father, maybe just stepfather. Famous pharaoh and builder of 3 pyramids. Hedefirs most possibly his mother, wife of King Sneferu, and well known for her precious grave goods found at Giza. Yanmanai, son of Khafur, nephews and nieces. Himiunu, director of the building of Khufu's Great Pyramid. Nefertiti III, daughter of Merising, Jeti, son of Rahotep and Nefertiti, son of Rahotep and Nofret. Neferkau, son of Rahotep and Nefertrit, daughter of Rahotep and Nofret. Nejamib, daughter of Rahotep and Nefertsit, daughter of Rahotep and Nefretmishal-Hos. And Rainer Stadelman wonder if the compiler of the Turin Canon actually took into account that the cattle count was performed biennially during the first half of the Old Kingdom period, whilst tax collection during the 19th dynasty was held every year. In sum, all these documents would prove that Khufu ruled for at least 26 or 27 years, and possibly for over 34 years, if the inscription in the relieving chambers points to a biennial cattle count. Indeed, if the compiler of the Turin Canon did not take into account a biennial cattle count, it could even mean that Khufu ruled for 46 years. Political activities. There are only a few hints about Khufu's political activities within and outside Egypt. Within Egypt, Khufu is documented in several building inscriptions and statues. Khufu's name appears in inscriptions at El Kab and Elephantine, and in local quarries at Hetnab and Wadi Hammamat. At Saqqara, terracotta figures of the goddess Bastet were found, on which, at their bases, the Horus name of Khufu is incised. They were deposited at Saqqara during the Middle Kingdom, but their creation can be dated back to Khufu's reign, ever found in Egypt. Another inscription found on the limestone walls of the harbor mentions the head of the royal scribes controlling the exchange of goods. Idu. Khufu's cartouche name is also inscribed on some of the heavy limestone blocks at the site. The harbor was of strategic and economic importance to Khufu because ships brought precious materials such as turquoise, copper, and ore from the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula. The papyri fragments show several storage lists naming the delivered goods. The papyri also mention a certain harbor at the opposite coast of Wadi al-Jarf, on the western shore of the Sinai Peninsula, where the ancient fortress Tel Ras Budran was excavated in 1960 by Gregory Mumford. The papyri and the fortress together reveal an explicit sailing route across the Red Sea for the very first time in history. It is the oldest archaeologically detected sailing route of ancient Egypt. According to Talat, the harbor could also have been one of the legendary high sea harbors of ancient Egypt, from where expeditions to the infamous Gold Land Punt had started. Dietrich Wilding has examined the representation of Nubian features in Egyptian iconography since the pre-dynastic era and has argued that Khufu had these specific Nubian features, and this was represented in his statues. It is often, when said by Home, that the small figurine is the only preserved statue of Khufu. Citation needed this is not quite correct. According to excavations at Saqqara in 2001 and 2003 revealed a pair of terracotta statues depicting a lion goddess, possibly Bastet or Sekhmet. On her feet, the figures of childlike kings are preserved, while the right figurine can be identified as King Khufu by his Horus name. The left one depicts King Pepi I of 6th dynasty. Called by his birth name, the figurines of Pepi were added to the statue groups in later times because they were placed separately and at a distance from the deity. This is inconsistent with the typical statue group of the Old Kingdom. Normally, all statue groups were built as an artistic unit. The two statue groups are similar to each other in size and scale, but differ in that one lion goddess holds a scepter. The excavators point out that the statues were restored during the Middle Kingdom. After they were broken apart, however, it seems that the reason for the restoration lay more in an interest in the goddess than in a royal cult around the king figures. Their names were covered with gypsum. The Palermo stone reports on its fragment C2 the creation of two oversized standing statues for the king. One is said to have been made of copper, the other of pure gold, without further. Several alabaster and travertine fragments of seated statues, which were found by George Weissman during his excavations in Giza, were once inscribed with Khufu's full royal titulary today. The complete or partially preserved cartouche with the name Khufu or Nunkov remain. One of the fragments, that of a small seated statue, shows the legs and feet of a sitting king from the knuckles downward. To the right of them the name Fu in a cartouche is visible, and it can easily be reconstructed as the cartouche name Khufu, known triad of Misranis. Two further objects are on display at the Romer and Palazzes Museum, Hildesheim. These are also made of alabaster. One of them shows the head of a cat goddess, most probably Bastet or Sekhmet. The position of her right arm suggests that the bust once belonged to a statue group similar to the well. The guiding inscription calls them the surroundings of Tefaf serve Khufu, beautiful bowls of Khufu, and bowling for Khufu. 40 to a third one shows the earliest known depiction of royal warfare. The scene is called Archers Prepare, since it shows archers drawing their bows. One of the relief fragments shows the cartouche of Khufu with the phrase, building of the sanctuaries of the gods. Another one shows a row of fat oxen decorated with flowers. They were prepared as sacrifices during an offering procession. A similar object is on display at the State Collection of Egyptian Art in Munich. The head is made of limestone and is comparatively small at only 57 centimeters. Khufu is depicted in several relief fragments found scattered in his necropolis and elsewhere. Several statue heads might have belonged to Khufu. One of them is the so-called Brooklyn head of the Brooklyn Museum in New York City. It is 3 centimeters large and made of pink granite.